What's up, guys? Welcome into the Tuesday night edition of the Rhino Live Show podcast. Tonight, we're going to tackle a few issues, give a different view of what you've probably already heard all week from Sunday and Monday. We're going to start with Antonio Brown. Is he nuts? We're going to ask the question and break down why we believe he's actually nuts. It's not a mental issue necessarily. It's not of a lot of things. There's a pattern of behavior that started back at Pittsburgh. We'll break that down. Is Kirk Herbstreit nuts? He's come out and said some things about the Bulls that make him not look as smart as you might think he is. We'll break that down. Him and Desmond Howard both of the newer expansion teams in the NFL, the Jaguars and Panthers, are going through some coaching troubles here. Urban Meyer being fired at Jacksonville, and now the Panthers owner David Tepper talking about making a mistake, giving Matt Rule a 7-year deal. We'll break that down. Mel Kiper. Do we still need Mel Kiper? Do every time we watch a college football game, do we need to figure that this linebacker is the 28th best linebacker in Mel Kiper's big board? No, I don't think we do. We don't really care. The separation between the college and the NFL game is very big. And until they're a starter in the NFL, we don't need to know if he's the 17th best player at his position. Mel Kiper, I mean, he's just the more annoying. Tom McShay as well. They're useless. They're good for just giving you information, but most of it you already know. And then Aaron Rodgers, under fire for most of the season for not taking the vaccination and his views on science and COVID. But one thing we can't argue about is on the field. He's been killing it. He killed it again Sunday night. He has to be the MVP. I think today in an interview, or last night interview, he let on that he's going to play on Sunday. Most people would think he would rest against the Lions, but it appears he's going to play and pump them stats on up a little further. I think he gets his 4th MVP. But let's talk about Antonio Brown first. Most of you've seen the footage, the outburst on the sidelines as Tampa Bay's down by 7 to the Jets. There's a little gray area about what was said between him and Bruce Arians. There's a lot of talk about the bonus money, which, I mean, it's $333,000 for each for 8 more catches, 55 yards, 1 more touchdown. That's a lot of money to most of you watching this, but it's not a lot of money in terms of NFL. And I'm sure had it come down to it, had it really gotten close, Tom Brady would probably give the guy $1 million. So it's not that as much as Bruce Arians didn't want him here to begin with. And he flipped out. He lost his mind. And that's what Antonio Brown does. He's done it with Pittsburgh. He did it with the Raiders. And now he's done it with Tampa Bay. And I'm sure at some point he's going to get another chance just because he's a great player. At Pittsburgh, he was probably a future Hall of Famer, I would think. And he's just explosive and he's a great player, a lot like Tyreek Hill or somebody like that, small in stature, but gets down the field. But he's nuts. So a lot of people are talking about mental health is real, and we always give the benefit of the doubt of mental health. I don't think this is mental health because when he was poor, he didn't have this reaction. And, he did this in Pittsburgh. He showed his ass. He got on the wrong side of Mike Tomlin. And then when he left, he threw the shade at Ben Roethlisberger, at Juju Schuster. He talked trashed about the whole organization. He comes to the Raiders. He gets in an altercation with the owner. Him and John Gruden can't get along. John Gruden tried to save him because he knows he needed him on the roster to win football games, but he blew that chance. And then somehow, Tom Brady vouches for the guy in New England, moves him into his home. And then, he doesn't play but 1 game. He's got other legal troubles. And then, last year in Tampa Bay, he brings him in, vouches for him again, and to give him another chance, which, Brady needed another wide receiver. and it worked out, and they won the Super Bowl. But it's not a mental health thing. We all have it in us to flip the desk over and say, take this job and shove it. The problem is most of us can't afford to do that. Most of us don't want to burn bridges. Most of us don't have another option. And most importantly, we don't have 7 or 8 figures in our bank account to where we feel 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And this is the same thing that, several guys have done. Le'Veon Bell was on a Hall of Fame pace as a running back for Pittsburgh. It's amazing what Mike Tomlin did at Pittsburgh, having those 2 guys and all the background on Ben Roethlisberger at one time and never having a losing season. It's phenomenal what Mike Tomlin did with all that going on. Antonio Brown's just the entitled, spoiled guy. He's just a dumbass. He's a brat. There's no way around. There's not a mental health. I mean, yeah, he probably has some mental health issues, but it's because of his attitude. I mean, you saw the tape of what he did to like his baby's mama when the police came. He's just a guy who feels like he's above it all. And if you keep rewarding him with contracts, that's exactly what happened. Tony Dungy said, this guy needs to get things figured out before you hire him again, or he's never going to change because there's no repercussions. I mean, the guy acts like an ass and he's rewarded with another $1 million, a couple $1 million contract. So Bruce Arians didn't want him there to begin with. Tom Brady, that was all on Tom Brady. And I think he says good riddance, even though with Chris Godwin gone for the season, they do kind of need Antonio Brown, but they don't need that kind of Antonio Brown. So I think, in hindsight, he's happy he's gone. It's a headache. It was a explosion that was bound to happen, and it finally did. And now at least they can move forward now. Everybody in the organization is saying the right things. But in reality, man, the guy's an asshole. I don't know why we can't call people that. The guy is he's bit the hand that's fed him in every situation, and it's good riddance. I'm sure he'll be hired or picked up by some teams that need a wide receiver. They'll look past it, and that's a bad precedent to set. We've already done that with domestic abusers and stuff like that before. So I don't know. I hope somehow the NFL puts a ban on him like they did Josh Gordon. That guy needs to sit out a year and realize what he missed, but I don't think he will. So anyway, Tampa Bay is going to try to repeat. A lot of injuries on that roster. It'd be interesting to see if Brady reaches out to a Julian Edelman. I see Terrell Owens has come and said he could play 3 or 4 games. It's going to be interesting to see. Guys want to play with Brady. Gronk came out of retirement to play with Brady. A lot of dudes want to play with Tom Brady, so it'll be interesting to see if they can replace Antonio Brown. So Kirk Herbstreit came out with all these guys opting out to not play in the bowl games. Kirk Herbstreit just said, guys just don't love football anymore. It's kind of a wide stroke to paint everybody in. You got to realize, like, guys play football around here in hopes of getting a college scholarship, no matter how small or how big. They pay your tuition to get a degree. That's your next step: college, a degree, a job. Well, if you're in the top 1%, your next job is going to be in the NFL. You've done your time. Some kids do enough studying and take tests and learn to the next step, where some guys play football, baseball, basketball, other sports to get to the next level, which their career will be professional athlete. And once you've accomplished all of that and you're in a position to a very lucrative position, and we're not talking about $60,000 a year or $100,000 a year, we're talking about the potential of making, 10, 12, 15, $20 million within 3 months, 4 months, 5 months from now. You got to take that in consideration. It's not a slight on the school at all. This is what you studied for. Your study was getting bigger, stronger, faster. And once you're able to cash that in, it would be no different than, you know, Google hiring an engineering student and paying him way more than he could get with his normal degree. But if he stays and takes his last test and doesn't ace it, he doesn't get that money. And that's the potential you're talking about here. Most of these guys wouldn't get hurt. It's unlikely you'll get hurt. But then Matt Corral for Ole Miss, he's a first round pick. He gets a high ankle sprain after a tackle in that bowl game against Baylor. Now, he'll be all right for the combine. He'll be all right for the draft. But, a twist here or there and breaks that ankle, his draft stock drops, depending on how long he's going to be out. So I think Kirk Herbstreit's short-sighted. He's got the old grumpy white man syndrome on this. I don't think if it's a national championship game, if you're playing for something, I believe that, we don't have opt-outs. Ohio State, all those kids that opted out, they probably play in that game if the Rose Bowl means playing Alabama for the championship. But, this is an exhibition. These bowl games are exhibitions. They mean nothing. I mean, other than some money and money to the university, money to the school, money to the conference, the kid doesn't get anything. If you put some in play where, each of these guys is getting 50 grand, 100 grand, I'm sure they play. But there's no benefit. There's the gift bag that they're going to get, the all you can eat dinner the night before. That doesn't change your family status as much as the NFL contract does. So I think he overstepped, and because he's a likable guy, not too many people tore him to shreds. But if LeBron, Kobe, KG, those guys jumped initially. And then most very good NFL guys leave after 3 years. And the very good baseball players leave straight out of high school. And because they're in a situation where you either got to stay or play 3 years. So they got to go out of high school. So I think given the opportunity, most people would take the money. The bowl game's cool or whatever, but you can't risk first round money. And for a meaningless bowl, especially some of these bowls that are, at 2:00 on a Tuesday, nobody really cares. And I don't think you can do anything but hurt yourself. Everybody's seen your body of work. Sam Howell played in the Mayo Bowl and looked terrible against South Carolina. That definitely couldn't have helped this case. I mean, you don't get the thanks for going out there and giving it your all for your team when you look like garbage. And that's what happened. So anyway, I think Kirk Herbstreit overstepped his bounds just a little bit. He has the right to say whatever he wants, but it's not the love of football. It's a future that very few of us, not even Kirk Herbstreit, has had a chance to partake in. So, man, if you got a chance to make $15 million, you got to get it, because those are few and far between. So now we move on to the Panthers and the Jaguars. For some reason, the owner, Khan at Jacksonville, thought that Urban Meyer would come in with the first pick, obviously get Trevor Lawrence and build this team into something that it hasn't been for a long time. And that's just not feasible. When you have the worst team in the NFL and a guy who's never coached in the NFL, it's not going to change overnight. So they hired Urban Meyer, some off the field stuff, some in the locker room stuff, supposedly kicks the kicker. We don't know what we don't know how drastic that was. That might have been a nudge, and it could have been a kick. I think if you're the kicker there, you have little balls, if any, if you let a man kick you, regardless if he's the coach or not, and then you have an NFL resume. But that being said, a lot of things end up getting him kicked out of town. The video, dancing with the co-ed, all that stuff stacked up against him. The locker room turned on him, and now he's fired, and they're looking for a new job. A new coach to take Urban Meyer's job. I don't know. There's always the same candidates year after year, and some guys just don't work out. And this year is Byron Leftwich is one of the two major names I've heard to take the job. One of the three, and I'll break down each of the three. Number one is Byron Leftwich. Now, Byron Leftwich just won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator. But what is the common ground there? Tom Brady. Tom Brady, a really good defense, an experienced core of Gronk, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a good offensive line, Leonard Fournette, and a solid team. They win. Now, how much of that was Byron Leftwich? I don't know. I don't know if Tom Brady overrides the offensive coordinator job like Peyton Manning. A lot of Tom Mora and Jim Caldwell got a lot of credit for Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning could have done that with me being the offensive coordinator. And that's the way I feel about Byron Leftwich. We've seen coordinators under Tom Brady go and try to be head coaches. We've seen Charlie Weiss do it, Josh McDaniels. It just doesn't work out unless you take Tom Brady with you. And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with Byron Leftwich. It's great if you give him an opportunity to win, to do something as a head coach. The Rooney rules in place, the minority. They like to give the minorities a chance to prove they can be good coaches, and that's fine with me. Brian Flores is doing a fine job in Miami. I mentioned Mike Tomlin, Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith, Marvin Lewis had their runs at times, but taking color out of the issue, I don't know that he's done enough on his own without Tom Brady to warrant a head coaching job, especially one where you're rebuilding a team that's got 2 wins. The worst team in the NFL the last 2 seasons. You think Byron Leftwich can just snap his fingers and turn that around? I mean, we've seen guys like Steve Spurrier, Nick Saban, guys who build programs in college go to the NFL and not be able to do it. And then another name I saw today, Bill O'Brien from Alabama. You got to quit hiring these Alabama coordinators, man. Just because you coach at Alabama, you're on the staff, doesn't mean you're good. And we've seen a lot of these guys, man. Sarkisian has gotten a couple jobs after being on the staff at Alabama, and it just doesn't translate. He was on the staff at Southern Cal with Reggie Bush, Wendell White, Matt Leinart, a great offensive line, a great defense, Clay Matthews, Maluga, Brian Cushing on the defense. They were a PlayStation powerhouse team, and they won a couple championships. Had nothing to do with Sarkisian, had nothing to do with Kiffin, had nothing to do with Ed Orgeron. That was a Pete Carroll build. And all those guys got jobs. Orgeron went to Ole Miss and failed. Kiffin went to Tennessee. He went to Southern Cal. He went to Oakland. And then now he's found some moderate success after Florida Atlantic at Ole Miss. But Sarkisian has been to Washington, Southern Cal, and now Texas. Orgeron just got fired from LSU after winning the national championship. But it just doesn't guarantee just because you was on the staff. Basically, what I'm trying to say is just because you're the best rear tire changer in NASCAR doesn't mean you can be a crew chief. It takes more than just being able to do your job good. You got to do the whole job good. And I just don't know that Byron Leftwich has the experience or Bill O'Brien has the experience. Bill O'Brien was at Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson, Nuke Hopkins, and Jadeveon Clowney, all high draft picks, and he never really did anything with them. He kind of floundered. J.J. Watt was on the other side of Clowney. He kind of floundered Deshaun Watson's career before he did it himself. So just because he's come here and had a really good season and got the Heisman Trophy winner, that has nothing to do with Bill O'Brien. Mike Locksley was still the OC. Bryce Young wins. If Sarkisian or Kiffin or anybody's there, this Alabama team is just as good. We've seen them win with new coordinators every year. It has nothing to do with Bill O'Brien. Don't make that mistake. Thirdly, the third guy on the list is the guy you should hire. And the only reason I say this is because he's taking a young quarterback. He's taken a average team and he's won a Super Bowl, and that's Doug Peterson. He took Carson Wentz. He molded him into a solid NFL quarterback, which he probably won the MVP that year had he not got hurt, and then brought in Nick Foles and still won a Super Bowl being the New England Patriots. He's got experience. He's got experience with young quarterbacks. He's got experience in winning. And I think it's a no-brainer. If Doug Peterson wants the job, you got to give it to him. I don't know that he can win in Jacksonville. I mean, it's going to take a lot. I mean, you got to get a solid offensive line to protect Trevor Lawrence. James Robinson, a couple of these receivers, have to hang in there, and you got to build a good defense. But I think Doug Peterson is the best guy on this list. And if you decide to go within the first two, you're I don't even know if it's a coin flip. I think it's like 25-75 that you fail. The NFL, man, it's tough. A lot of guys fail. Most coaches at some point fail. Even the ones that win end up like Doug Peterson. A couple of years later, Philadelphia don't want you anymore. So it's a dog-eat-dog business. But I think Doug Peterson is the best fit for Trevor Lawrence and the existing team as it stands right now. Carolina, on the other hand, I don't know what David Tepper was thinking. Matt Rule had 2 bad seasons at Temple and then had a pretty good season. Then he had a couple bad seasons at Baylor and had a good season. I don't know where that translates into being able to win an NFL football team with paid athletes, with grown adults. Like coaching college, you kind of, before this NIL deal came out, you kind of had the kids by the balls and you could kind of hold it against them playing time and school and all this kind of stuff. In the NFL, they're making more than you are. And, to try to implement the same tactics to get your point across doesn't quite work. More guys than this Antonio Brown to flip out on you. And once you lose the locker room, it's over. In college, you have total control. But in the NFL, man, you got to be very good at what you do and get the respect of the locker room. And I don't know where, especially a 7-year deal for an unproven guy who's already fired as offensive coordinator, who brought in a guy who's been in the league for years, who hadn't really done anything, and Sam Darnold, to bring back Cam Newton, who was beloved by the fans and had a really good run. His first, 8 or 9 years in the league, took him to a Super Bowl, won the MVP, but he's a shell of himself. He doesn't have the whole repertoire of the running game or a consistent running game that he did back when he was the MVP. So it's a tough call for him. They drafted J.C. Horn out of South Carolina when they needed so much more. Christian McCaffrey can't stay healthy. I don't know what you do there with Matt Rule. And to come out and publicly say you're not confident in your head coach sends a bad message to the locker room, to the players who then might not have confidence. And then your team just goes down the drain. I don't know. David Tepper's got plenty of money. He could buy out Matt Rule and start over if he wanted to. I'm not sure that's something you want to do at this point. But a little disarray up in the Queen City. It'll be interesting to see what they do at the end of the year. He may just want to call it quits and start fresh. I'm looking forward to seeing that. There is some talent on that team, but you got to have McCaffrey healthy. You got to have a quarterback you can trust and an offensive line that can block. And then, I think a healthy defense, they'll be fine. But you got to be able to score in the NFL, man. This is a different NFL than the 80s teams where you could win games like 20-16. Everybody can put up 20. You got to put up 30. And right now they can't do it. And I don't know that Matt Rule has an answer to get them over that hump. Mel Kiper. 20 years ago, when Twitter wasn't available and the World Wide Web wasn't as easily attainable as it is now, Mel Kiper was probably a great asset at ESPN. We don't know every player. There wasn't no SEC network or ACC network or Big Ten network. We didn't get to see every player. We didn't get to see all these games. We didn't have these ESPN Plus, and then, plus all these, the Athletic, and like I said, Twitter. It gives us all this information. So Mel Kiper was kind of a link to stuff that we didn't get to see as much. But now, man, it's oversaturated with college football shows, NFL shows, draft shows, fantasy shows. So, the need for Mel Kiper is minimized. Occasionally he'll throw out a stat on a guy who may be at a mid-major that we don't know about, that turns out to be Khalil Mack from Buffalo, something like that. A Jerry Rice guy from, super small school, or even guys like Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce that might go under the radar, who end up being, Pro Bowl kind of guys. But it's rare. And, had Mel Kiper been a GM in 1997, he drafts Ryan Leaf over Peyton Manning. And, then 3 years later, he's probably unemployed for making such a bonehead move. So, I get tired of everything reference to what Todd McShay and Mel Kiper says. We know Bryce Young is the best. We know Najee Harris is going to be a stud in the NFL, and Devontae Freeman and CD Lamb and all these guys we watch on TV, every Saturday. Chase Young, we know Jadeveon Clowney. We know these guys are going to transfer their talents to the NFL. I just think it's oversaturated with rankings of Mel Kiper. I'm tired of hearing about it. I don't think that guy knows much more than me and my group of friends. I think if we put our list together, it would be comparable, and we may even be right more than him. So I'll be glad when he kicks the bucket, and we don't have to hear about who's the 18th best cornerback in this class over and over. Aaron Rodgers, 2021 MVP Aaron Rodgers. It's amazing to what he's done with a team that last year drafted a quarterback to replace him, and not even a good quarterback at that. Like, I kind of understand the Chargers, when they was in that predicament and had, Breeze and drafted Rivers, and you kind of get in a situation where you got to take the best available player if you think a guy's moving out, or where the Packers have Brett Favre and they drafted Aaron Rodgers in that scenario because eventually he's going to pass the torch. But the Packers drafted Jordan Love from Utah State, who didn't, and in no way, shape, or form translated into a Pat Mahomes, Russell Wilson, quarterback. So they wasted a pick where they could have got, another good wide receiver, maybe a solid defensive end, a linebacker, a corner, anything. But basically, you traded up to get a guy to replace the guy that wasn't going anywhere, that's going to win another MVP. So I can see his disgust, his disdain for the Packers organization. I mean, this is a guy who cut his own parents off. So he didn't mind cutting off, a management situation, regardless if they pay him or not. I can see where he was upset coming in. It appears that, he may leave after this year. It's going to depend on, he may stay if he can keep Devontae Adams and they win a championship. But knowing this guy, he may just leave in spite of that, and let you win with Jordan Love if you can. It'll be interesting to see, but it's phenomenal what he does. The game time temperature was 10 degrees, and it got down to 1 degree. He never missed a beat. They just kept scoring. He reads defenses as good as anybody. He's got a lot of Peyton Manning in him, where he's so aware of what's going on around him. And he makes the plays. And Devontae Adams is phenomenal. That's a good tag team right there. And he's definitely, going to win the MVP, barring some political garbage or somebody having an amazing day. All right. So wrapping this thing up, I'm going to throw a little basketball at you. I don't know how much basketball you watch, but the evolution of the charge call in basketball has almost made me sick to where I don't want to watch basketball. Duke kind of started this years ago, where if a guy's on a fast break, you slide over in front of him, put your hands like this, and take a charge. Duke seems to get those calls more often than not. And it's a bad brand of basketball. It's almost like if you was playing football, you would run as far as you could down the field and let the wide receiver run over you and get called for offensive pass interference to get a penalty on the team instead of playing the ball. Nobody plays the ball anymore. Everybody stops, stand still. I just watched it in the South Carolina Auburn game before I got on here. A guy looked like he was going to the basket. The defender stopped and froze like this, and then he goes around him and scores. I mean, this is not defense. Getting an offensive foul call is not defense. It's a bad precedent that was set in the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, mainly by a team like Duke. It's smart on Duke's part to get as many calls as you can. Do whatever you got to do to get the ball back. But it's bad basketball, man. That's not defense. That's like, back in the day in baseball, you could stick your elbow out and get hit and go to first. And they kind of reeled that in. And if you don't move out the way in basketball, if you don't move out of the way, it's a no pitch or it's a ball or whatever. So I think that's what basketball is going to have to grab. Nobody's saying this. Nobody watches this. Nobody says this. I can't believe it that you're all right with your best defense is just getting run over. It's the stupidest damn thing I've ever seen. So, all right, that's pretty much all the sports I got for this Tuesday night. I'm going to preview the weekend matchups going forward. I'm going to preview Alabama, Georgia, and how that line is kind of fishy. Alabama took Georgia to the woodshed just a month ago in the SEC championship game in Atlanta. And now, a month later, Georgia's a favorite by 3. And really, there's only one guy missing. That's a wide receiver, John Mechie from Alabama. It's not like the quarterback's out or running back or Nick Saban's not going to be there. It's kind of odd to me that Georgia's a favorite after getting woodshed. And it's almost telling you to take Alabama, which if you've ever bet any amount of sports, when they lead you in the one way, they're trying to cut your head off. So I'm leaning right now towards taking Georgia -3. It's like a revenge game, and Vegas thinks that Georgia's going to shut down Alabama and win this game. And remember, before the SEC championship, Alabama struggled with Auburn, LSU, Arkansas, and Florida. So they hadn't looked like this juggernaut of team until they played Georgia. If they revert back to that team that played Arkansas or beat Auburn in 4 overtimes on 2-point conversion, Georgia wins that football game. So be leery before you bet on that. We're going to break it down on Thursday. I appreciate you watching. You'll have a good night. Enjoy that Kansas State LSU, the last bowl game before the national championship. I think Kansas State is going to roll tonight. They're laying about 7.5. They should win by 2 scores. They may blow it wide open. LSU doesn't want to be there, nor do they have the players or coaches to win this game. But that's just a little tip. Kansas State -7.5 is a lot. Appreciate y'all listening. Stay tuned Thursday night. We'll see you.